children fell. Britain snatched Nile, France took the West, Germany grabbed land like it passed the test. No language in common, just rule and divide. Fed us their flags, made us swallow our pride. They taught us to hate what we saw in the mirror. Now we pray to their gods just to feel clearer.
Greetings, everybody. Welcome to another Alkebulan Awakening series in collaboration with Khanyi. My name, as always, is Olade. I'm the founder of the Emerging Alkebulan. And as always, guys, you know what to expect for those who follow us. We're here to decolonize our minds and awaken our consciousness. There's so much stuff going on in the world today. And my question today is, Africans, where are you? Where are you in the world today? We're going to have a discussion. Greetings. Nduku. You're muted.
I like that. Dr. King wrote a book before he left us. Where do we go from here? Chaos or community? We are currently in chaos. Are we going to choose community? The name is Nduku. I'm the host on Kumbukeni. Let's talk about that. Where do we go from here? I'm certain our sister's submission today is going to have us answer that question. Where do we go from here? Chaos or community?
Thank you very much. Okay, our guest today is Khanyi Tshabalala. I'll let her introduce herself, and then we go into the topic today.
Yeah, I thought you were going to help me and do it, but I guess
I've already helped.
Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm Khanyi Tshabalala, founder of Seize the Light Foundation, dual qualified lawyer in South Africa and Australia, and Pan-African Youth Member of Parliament.
Thank you very much. That was not too hard. Fantastic. Okay, guys. Just to start the conversation, the topic we're going to be talking about today is that the future of work is African, a youth perspective on reclaiming tomorrow, which is basically what Khanyi is going to be talking about. But to get into that, we said we discussed even before we came on live that we're going to just segue into what's going on in South Africa today, the xenophobia. And I've made a few posts about that, and I've posted a few comments about that. And this is my view on what's going on in South Africa today. We Africans, we need to stop fighting each other. We are one people. The Berlin Conference is basically what split us into these itsy-bitsy enclaves, like I call them. So you got South Africa, Uganda, Tanzania, Kenya. Before that, we had communities, we had empires, we had kingdoms. We didn't have no enclave as a country. It's basically when the Muzungus came, they split us. And once they split us, we use those borders. It's become mental, and it's become physical, and it's become psychological. So now we're holding on to our enclave that they created for us. to divide ourselves. Because I see it happened in Nigeria, it happened in Ghana, where people telling people to go back to where they come from, despite the fact that we have so much commonalities. The only scourge that we have that's infesting Africa so badly is the Muzungus. Our energies should be focused on them and our governments, most importantly, because our governments are compromised. If the governments are not compromised and complicit, then all the things that were going on today, it wouldn't be happening. So let's spend that energy. It's not fighting ourselves as brothers and sisters. Let's spend that energy on the government to do what they're supposed to do and to reallocate land or whatever they do to bring equity to Africa. And this is basically my start on this. I'll let the ladies bring their perspective on this. Anuka, you want to go?
I was going to let Khanyi go. And then
Khanyi, you want to go? Okay.
Okay. This one is a very tricky one for me, and I come at it from various angles because, of course, for those that know, I have been an international laborer twice, so I do know what it's like to go to a country that's not your own, and I think that's maybe a helpful point of departure. But I need to tread carefully and have people understand multiple truths can exist. And I think we must also be able to be open-minded enough to explore the nuances when it comes to this topic. Because what I find among the diaspora, we don't have enough knowledge about what actually happened on the continent, whether it was during colonization or during apartheid in South Africa. And I think for me, that's what's leading to all the tension that has arisen on the continent, particularly from the South African context. I think that South Africans feel that they paid for their freedom in blood, because at the end of the day, it was their family members who died for their freedom. And now, you've got the diaspora coming and enjoying the resources. And I agree with Oladele. I'm not going to take away from the fact that, yes, those resources have been propelled to the benefit of white capital. Very aware of that. However, I think because there was bloodshed, that's the sticky point of South Africans may feel they haven't really had an opportunity to enjoy their freedom. And I say freedom because we've got political freedom, but not economic freedom and not social freedom. And I think that's why, in their view, some South Africans hold that view. Let's all develop our countries individually, because we're actually all plagued by the same problem. It just looks different because we're all at different stages. So I agree with you on the unity point, but I think there also needs to be some context when it comes to South Africa, that we got our freedom quite later on, and the diaspora had privileges. I mean, many of them went to Western countries. They managed to amass wealth. South Africans never had that opportunity. I mean, I meet so many people who are shocked to meet a Black South African, because we never had the opportunity to migrate internationally, even till today. So I think there just needs to be a bit more sensitivity, and also people just studying a bit more what happened, but also asking people with lived experience, because I think that's what's missing from the conversation.
Okay, fair enough. Anuka, your thoughts, please?
I agree it is a nuanced conversation. I'll start by saying, South Africans, your enemy is not your fellow Black man. Your enemy is the Yorugo, the Mzungu. That is who your enemy is. You are in the state you are because of the white people in your nation, the white people who control your nation. I will also say, South Africans, you've forgotten your principle of Ubuntu. Of all people who should remember it, it should be you. You have forgotten. And I will go and respond to this. Those who believe that they paid for their freedom with their blood, yes, South Africans fought. But South Africans would have lost if not for the international support you got from fellow and Ubuntu. You were losing until other people from outside stepped in and helped you. Your battle was lost. You were being killed on the streets with weapons that you could not match. The battles are there, the records are there, the evidence is there. So your freedom is a freedom, and through Ubuntu, through the people who you're chasing away. Now, the other side of this coin is some of the people who are coming are bringing crime, because they have been affected by this virus of being leeches. Everywhere they go, they're just leeches. They suck, and they defecate evil. So that has to be addressed. But that can't be a conversation where you go in a hospital. One of the videos I saw, innocent women with their children, and you're announcing, who is South African here? If you're not South African, get up. Embarrassing people, getting them up and sending them out of hospitals. You're an enemy if that's what you're doing. The other side of this coin has multiple sides. It's not your regular coin. It's an African coin. It's not the Western coin that has two sides. This one has as many sides as I declare it has. The other side of this coin is that something is afoot. We know how covert operatives move in Africa. We know how they pay for disruption. All of a sudden, terrorism has stopped being an issue, and now xenophobia is an issue. Why? What is happening? Why all of a sudden is the black man not tolerant of the other? The same thing is happening in Kenya. Who is pushing the Somalis to Kenya? Kenyans are getting upset now. Kenyans are talking about we have to be violent. We have to defend ourselves. Who is pushing the Somalis to Kenya? Who's pushing the Nigerians to South Africa? Who is doing all this manipulation and disrupting Africa that we're not paying attention to? And then this mindset of scarcity, which is why you're out here fighting your brother, as if you can't go and take the chicken that you have and divide it into more pieces so that it can feed more people, right? That's our culture. Our culture is not you're taking my, no, is I'm going to share my. It never is you're taking what's mine, because it isn't yours, and we understand that. So South Africans, you need to start behaving yourselves, because you're out of turn. You're really like acting a fool right now, and it's not looking good for all of us, because we understand, again, Ubuntu. If you act a fool, we all look like fools. So get in shape, South Africans, and start dealing with the issues that need to be dealt with instead of fighting your brothers on the street. This thing of videos of people punching people in the face. Oh, because you're Nigerian, I'm going to punch you to a pulp. Or the guy who's organizing for women to be raped and women to be prostituted in South Africa is living lavishly in a house. You're not addressing that person. That's your problem. The Nigerian who has organized crime, that's your problem. Why don't you organize these are Nigerians who are living well and peacefully? Organize them and fellow South Africans and go address that person in that mansion who's organizing rape and prostitution of South African women. That's what I'd rather see. That's what you should be doing, instead of going to the streets to innocent people, helpless people who are just trying to make a living and punching them in the face. So something has to be done.
Yeah, I agree. And before you come in, Khanyi, and like I said it initially, this is basically where we Africans need to focus on our governments. Our governments are lacking, and external forces are distracting us to fight each other, but we're not holding our governments accountable. Because all the things that you complain about, if your governments did due diligence and did what they're supposed to do, we won't be talking about this. So we've left the focus away from the government, who is reneging and is not doing what they're supposed to do. And we are also leaving the Urugu, the Muzungu alone, who are basically the infestation on our continent. So for me, let's focus on those two things, mainly your governments who are complicit, and then the enemies, the Muzungu, who are basically the rots on our continent today. Khanyi, before we go into the topic, you want to finish up on anything? Want to say anything?
No, I think we've covered everything when it comes to that topic. I think that's okay for that one for now.
Okay, all right. Okay, today's topic, the main reason why Khanyi is here, I've just put it on the screen there. The future of work is African. So as being a youth, he's going to give us her perspective on how we can reclaim the work of tomorrow. Because, and this is, let me lead with this. I look at Africa today, and as an elder, and I'll say that as an elder, we have failed the generation of today. My generation has failed. We've been so self-centered, so greedy that we haven't done the work, the groundwork that the youth should come into, and and expand this and basically be empowered. We have not done that. This is basically why the generation of today are struggling. So now, as an elder, this is why we do what we're doing, basically to bring people together, to basically find solutions on how we can fix what was rotten. And now we can empower the youth basically to do the work, because we are not going to do the work because we're too old now. So it's people like Khanyi who's here, who is going to lead the way. Obviously, we're going to be there, but the work needs to be done. And if we don't do the work today now, I worry about my grandkids. Khanyi, take it away.
Thank you. I like the fact that you grounded the conversation that, you know, as an elder, what is your role in this conversation? Because when you currently look at global leaders, I mean, some of them are behaving like that drunk uncle that just doesn't want to leave the party, right? You're like, uncle, you can see you're finished. It's time to go home. No, he still wants to give one last dance kick on the stage. And you're like, seriously? We need to find dignified ways of transitioning people, because I think that's in where the problem lies. Some older people are not like you guys who understand, I've had my time, now let me hold space for young thoughts to emerge. I have my wisdom and my lived experience that I can impart, but let me hold space for young people. I think we can all agree that most of the world's problems and Africa's problems are being created by older people that aren't even going to be here. So for us as the youth, it's so frustrating that the people that are plundering the world are not even going to be here. So that's why we have to get involved and take authority and ownership over how we're going to constitute labor, because the social contract is broken. What we were promised, go to school, guaranteed employment, tenure at a job, probably 30 years job security, that's no longer the case. We're currently looking at statistics that show that 60% of the youth, for example, in South Africa are unemployed. And I think that that statistic actually can be applied broadly across the continent. And we then need to ask ourselves, why is it that people maybe who should be transitioning are not transitioning and making way for younger people? And that leads to, I think, conversations around how do we determine our value and our worth as people? Because to me, it seems like most of the people that are holding on, they value themselves according to what they do for a living. But we must understand that that mindset is a mindset that we've adopted through colonialism. Through our indigenous Ubuntu systems, everybody had value. No matter how old you are, everybody was a contributor. But unfortunately, in this capitalist system that we've adopted, your only value is what can people extract from you or what you can extract from them. And therein lies the problem. Another thing is that there's a concept called the Maslow hierarchy of needs, and I'm not sure how familiar people may be with this with it. It's a Western psychology concept, but it's important because it actually informs and underpins capitalism. So in Maslow's hierarchy of needs, it says that in order for me to self-actualize on this earth, I must do everything I can to get to the top. So it's kind of like a pyramid. And actualization means that me, Khanyi, makes it in life, meaning that I don't think about other people until I get to the top. And then this concept says once you're self actualized, then you can think about other people. So I think I highlight this because that triangle is actually inverted. The true hierarchy and the one embedded in indigenous knowledge and in Ubuntu is the reverse. You first have to actualize as a person, and then you become of value to other people. It would make no sense for you to go on an individualistic journey and assume a particular, undertake particular studies and assume a particular role in an institution and enrich yourself and enrich your family. And then when that is done, then you wake up and say, okay, now I'm ready to enrich everybody. No, by the time that that you can do that, you won't even have the energy and the resources. And that is how the system operates. I intersect with so many people who are at the later end of their careers. And they all tell me that, oh, I've had, a come to Jesus moment. I'm now into Buddhism. I'm exploring the meaning of life. And the only thing I ever say to them is, why are you waiting to do this now when you're at the end of your career? Why aren't we exploring the meaning of life at 20? What's stopping you from exploring it at a younger age? And the reason that you're prohibited or prevented from exploring that meaning is because the whole system is built for extraction. You go to school and you also study to be an extractor yourself, because everybody historically went for your professions. You were a doctor, you were a lawyer, you were an accountant. Unfortunately, you were trained to be an extractor. If you were a doctor, you're extracting money from your patients for you to tell them how they can become about their vitality. If you're a lawyer, you're extracting because you are the person who's going to tell the person how they can do whatever they need to in court, and so on and so forth. So this is why we find ourselves as a society in the position that we're in. We have all been educated to be extractors. So I think for me, until we recalibrate this value system, we will not be able to not only reclaim the continent, reclaim value, but reclaim our humanity. And I think that that's important. People need to understand when we talk about the liberation of Africa, it's important because until Africa becomes liberated, the rest of the world will remain under the shackles of capitalism. I will leave it there for now and let you come in.
Yeah, I like what you started with there, and something I've just picked up with what you're doing there. We're talking about solutions in terms of, okay, the work we need to do forward, and you brought in Ubuntu there. And obviously you talked about the extractive system that we all fit into, because that's basically, and the last week or so, Ndukwu knows, I've been digging into capitalism so badly that she told me, you already know the answers to that. But I was just so into it. I've been reading so many books about capitalism. And that fits into exactly what I've been researching. It's basically the system is built to create individualism and extraction. So it doesn't matter how we Africans look at it, we're basically complicit in this system because we're extracted. Once you go out there, you look into just sort of take something off your fellow human being. People don't think about it, they think it's business, but that's what you're doing. So in terms of Ubuntu, as a youth, how do we make Ubuntu work amongst the youth? Something that we adults have felt to do.
Before you ask the question, let me just comment on what Khanyi just said.
Yeah,
so each person, African culture, and I like that you pointed out that whole pyramid thing, and it took me back to our days in school, this Western miseducation, right? Remember how they used to give us those pyramids where you saw the lion at the top and then the rat on the bottom and all that? Like, we literally all our life, that's what they're teaching us, a pyramid. In one way or another, there's a pyramid. There's the bird, you'll see the eagle at the top, and then you'll see the dove, the duck. Like, it's always that way. African culture is structured in a circular way. And in a circle, no one is above, no one is below. That should be very telling to us. It should be very telling. And this is the importance of doing the Sankofa, the going back to reach into our history, to see what gems are there, what treasures are there, what wisdom is there that our ancestors left for us. Why are we doing this? Because we have not tracked life with our culture. We were detached from our culture through all these systems where the Western virus came into our systems and took over. So now we have to go. We are a people who have to go back. We are people who, and I saw someone put there, brainwashed. For those of you who sat with us on our broadcast yesterday, Mwalimu Kalfani, Dr. Kalfani said, we have to stop using their language and their way of thinking. To wash is to clean. We have been brain dirtied, he said. And now we need to brainwash ourselves. We need to clean the dirt that has been deposited in our brains, the virus, the infection. And now we need to wash our brains so that we can return to our clean selves, our African selves. So each person has the capability and actually the duty to serve community from birth. From birth, this whole thing of waiting. And it's funny you said that, Khanyi, because when I was working at the place I was working, and Black people were the hardest people to get by as I was fighting for all our rights, especially for Black people, right? One of them said to me, she's Black American. Unfortunately, some of them do not want to connect with us, continental Africans. And she said to me, I don't see a we between you and I. I said, because she was criticizing my abrasive way of dealing with things. She said, she has a different way of dealing with things. I said, so how can you, with your different way of dealing with things, and me and my abrasive way of dealing with things, work together to make sure that we make this happen, right? There's no we between you and I, she said. I don't see a we between you and I. I said, but listen, you told me you have a strategic way of dealing with things. How come then my abrasive way is the only way that has given us results? How come and this is the case all the time. People complain about my abrasive way, but it's the only one that gives us results. Like when you look at the evidence, this soft way of dealing with things has no results, zero results. And if they're there, they are fake results. The abrasive way has always got us results. When Dr. King decides to organize people and say, we're not getting on those buses and we're going to walk and we're going to make sure that your dollar is destroyed, drivers and bus companies, that's the abrasive way, and that worked. When he was in offices meeting with presidents, he was being sent here, sent there, sent here, sent in all directions. It didn't work. So my point is to say that you have to start where you are with what you have, right? I am going to contribute whichever way I can. If it means going to a gathering at the bookstore and just touching someone's life, making someone laugh, talking in community, making food for the event, making sure the kids are watched, laughing with the kids, caring. There's a mother who came, you be the one who watches the kids as she speaks or something like that. We are always contributing to community. And we can all start. I have friends now who buy me books and send me books. That is someone who's making a difference in just doing that. Because I'm reading, some of these people are like, you got to read this book because you need to have this guest. I'm reading that book and I'm having that guest, and you all are getting that knowledge. So this thing of waiting until you are CEO, doctor, this, that, we get that, right? To function in this society, you need the doctors and all that, but don't wait until you get there. Start giving your wisdom now because you have it. Go ahead, Khanyi. Oladile, you asking a question?
Yeah. I was basically tying on what we're saying as a youth, from a youth perspective. You mentioned Ubuntu. So how do we bring Ubuntu solutions into this? Me and Nduku discuss it all the time, but from your perspective, how do we make Ubuntu work? Because we've touched about it, in a few minutes that we've been here. Yeah, go on.
The overhaul, it's going to have to be a major one, because unfortunately the indoctrination, it's so pervasive that we work in silos. So even if we touch one silo, unfortunately, then we need to also explore that one, and we wouldn't have considered the other one. So this is a very complex subject. However, I think that we need to reclaim what value means to us. And unfortunately, for many Africans, our value has been attributed to what can be extracted from us. And we've always been viewed as cheap labor, or the labor that we need to perform has always sort of been dictated for us. There's these particular boxes that we've been placed into, that, these are the kind of forms of employment that we would occupy. So unfortunately, I think that has contributed to the negative mindset that Africans have about themselves, because the extractors haven't necessarily thought, oh, Nduku, you could just be the next CEO of whatever organization. And I don't want to even mention one because it will give them clout. So I don't do free marketing for people. They must sponsor the podcast and then we will name them. So I think that self-esteem, we don't necessarily have that, because the value system that we're valuing ourselves based off is Western. So I think for me, we need to re-educate younger Africans about value from an Ubuntu perspective, that you are valuable outside of the Western construct. Because I don't know, it will take a long time for us to deconstruct Western ways. And that's something that we need to be realistic about, because we're talking about coming at it from an academic level, because as I said, many people are being educated to be extractors, but the education that they're receiving, it's pseudo knowledge. It's not real knowledge. Because for me, again, I look at it and I think, how would it make sense that when everybody leaves school, we're all going to fight for one job? Surely once we've left school, we should leave school to be able to create jobs for other people there. It's more of an abundant mindset. So you can already see that the whole system, it's underpinned by scarcity. Everybody's in a scarcity mindset, a lack mindset. And that also feeds into capitalism, where I need to be bigger, better, stronger, and push you down. And then, I feel like I'm doing well if this person is beneath me. And then, in a certain space, when people see people that of a certain color, no, it must mean that the system is now rigged, because how are these people getting in? Because I was told that I need to eat first. So this mindset, I think we really need to overhaul it all. It is the most un-Ubuntu or non-Ubuntu way of looking at work, but it's because we look at work as something that needs to be performed for other people. It's not something that we see as our own internal expression. We always go around and ask kids, hey, what do you want to be when you grow up? Shouldn't the right question be, what do you want to contribute? Because I think then that shifts the conversation. And I can guarantee you now, if professions that historically were well paying, and we're already going to see this shift now because with AI it's coming, those historically well-paying professions, if they were not paying people the salaries that they were, I highly doubt that people would pursue them, right? So right now we're about to see an inverted order where the professions that had cognitive labor that AI is now going to take over, those professions aren't going to be well remunerated anymore. So I'm also interested to see how many doctors, lawyers, and accountants and management consultants we're actually going to have now that those industries no longer have the financial prosperity that they had for people. And then it's also going to be interesting to see how many people really were passionate management consultants, or were they passionate because of the paycheck. So the sooner that we recalibrate our mindset away from financial compensation and valuing ourselves according to that metric and bringing it towards ourselves, because Nduku mentioned a very important point. All of us have value from birth. Every single person actually has inherent talents, skills, and ability. But the problem is that with the Western system, some people's talents will never come to fruition, because in a system where we are evaluating people based on one academic metric, a test. You fail the test, you're dumb, leave school. That to me makes no sense. What if you're just bad at sitting down? What if you need to take an oral exam? There's so many learning accommodations. And I was mind blown when I actually, because I've never had to go into, let's say, for example, all of these concepts around accommodative learning, because I was not a learner that needed that. But because of the work I'm doing, I've had to, because of things like ADHD that we look at when it comes to mindfulness. And when looking at that, I realized how ignorant I was, because again, I've gone through I've normalized certain things, right? I've gone through a certain trajectory where I deemed normal that everybody can read and write at this pace. Everybody can take an exam and get a mark. And if you don't, then you just didn't cut it. Whereas that doesn't make sense. The people that have made it or at the top are not necessarily the smartest people. They're just the people that managed to maneuver the metric that was put in front of them. And that goes for any other outcome that I look at. We are probably not the smartest people. There could be villagers in a village in Kenya who could probably think about solutions, but because they don't have access, their solutions will never become mainstream. So we must also take into account that it doesn't necessarily mean just because an idea has become mainstream and largely accepted that is what we should be following. And I think that also comes down to people honing into their individuality, because we've had this, we're all going to school. Everybody wants to be a doctor. What if if that's not what you want to do? That's okay. You need to be able to lean into what you are good at. So I think we need to start encouraging individualism, but in a way that it benefits the collective. Because historically, how I understood African communities to organize themselves, everybody leaned into what they were good at. And that's what made this community more harmonious. Now, in the Western society, Oladele and I are both competing to be a project manager. And now we want to be a senior project manager, but there's only one role. And then he gets it, and then I don't get it, and I think I'm bad. And that's not true. The payroll could only support one person, because that's capitalism. Leave it at that. Don't feel bad about yourself. So we need to start deconstructing all of this mindset that we have. Work is not about everything that we think it is. It's about you bringing your internal expression outwardly and it benefiting other people. If it only benefits you and your family and your bank account, then I think then you need to rethink what value and work means to you.
Powerful, thank you. You know what? I enjoy sitting and listening to the youth talk, man, because I sometimes things look bleak, but when you see the next generation who get it and understand the work that needs to be done, it gives me hope. Seriously, it does give me hope. And what you just said there makes a lot of sense. And there's something we're talking about. Let's talk about zooming into education now, because education is one of the biggest challenges facing Africans today. Like you said, we Africans, I'll say, we have been miseducated. Our education should be based on a Pan-African, Afrocentric curriculum, which basically underscores our paradigm in terms of what Africa needs, our resources, and collectively, Ubuntu. That's what our education should be based on. But for some reason, and I did put a post out today about that, in 2026, we have all these professors who has got the letters behind their names, who have been miseducated, misguiding the future of the next generation. So guys, what do you expect? Garbage in, garbage out. Because the people who are there, who are meant to be the innovators of the past, are still caught in what messed them up. What they don't realize is messed them up. And now you're giving the same education, miseducation, to the future generation. And like what Khanyi is saying here, we need to start rethinking, recalibrating, deconstructing the whole system. We've been through colonialism for years. Okay, most of the Africans who got independence, probably who's the oldest, about 65 years of independence. What they left behind is a colonial educational curriculum system. In 2026, most African countries are still sticking to this educational system. And I've got a lot of people here from LinkedIn or whatever you are. And we are fitting into this system and we think it's normal and okay. Whereas what he's doing is basically creating more laborers who are not useful for Africa, useless for Africa, not useful for Africa, but good enough to be caregivers and bum cleaners in the West. And you guys don't see a problem with that. And I look at Africa, at Nigeria, as a Nigerian, I look at our education today. They have so many graduates, but they're useless. So why are we not building, educating them in terms of mining, agriculture, things that, innovative things that's going to fit? And like Khanyi said, and this is the issue, the capitalist system, we're looking to make money. But our solution should be based on community, what the community needs. When everybody's empowered, surely that helps everybody. So, you don't have to be the one-eyed king in the midst of the blind. But yeah, because some of them aspire to get to the top there, and you're up there and then loading it over the people down below you. What's wrong with building from the level up, like you said earlier? This is solutions that when people are talking about solutions, but this is a solution we need to start looking into. So we're not going to get there. We're not going to get there when we be individualistic. Obviously, like Khanyi said, we all have unique talent. We all do. Use your talent to elevate others. You're not going to get there on your own. In my language, they said, basically, collectively, you come together to lift each other up. The same thing in Ubuntu. I am because you are because I am. This is who we are as Africans. But the fact that we are still miseducated and this is an issue for me. And me and Nduku, we're looking into developing our Afrocentric curriculum, and we're trying to work on that. And this for me is an issue, because if the education is rotten from the outset, how are we going to change our mindset? How are we going to decolonize our minds when we're still giving the kids garbage that we, as Africans, had in the past? Anyway, Unduku.
I like what Khanyi said there, bringing your internal expression outwardly and letting it help others. And it's as simple as that. So I remember when I started doing this work, my kids are in teenage years. My daughter is about to go to college. So it's almost that time where now getting them to think the way I think is going to be a struggle. I know that for a fact, because they're so conditioned in their ways, right? So unlearning them, it's not like when they're younger, when you can mold them, right? But I said to them, as they think about what to do when they go to school, think about something that you're going to use to serve your community. And that's how education should be looked at. Any education. For anyone who's building an African centered education, don't think, oh, STEM, computers, oh, engineering, oh, look at what the West they're doing. Oh, German produces good cars. We need to also produce good cars. No. You have to look at education as, where's my community? Okay, I'm in Kenya today. What are the needs in Kenya? We don't have healthy food. We don't have food available, right? We are importing food. We should not be importing food from our enemies. So that's a solution. We have to figure out there have to be farmers. There have to be people who are trained and skilled to grow healthy food. And then there have to be people who are trained and skilled to transport it. There have to be people who are trained and skilled to preserve it. What's the other need? Our people are getting sick. We have to figure out what's going on with our people's bodies. So there has to be someone who's skilled in figuring that out. There has to be someone who's skilled in figuring out the herbs that are going to help people get well. What's the other need our people have? Okay, we can't be out here sleeping in the sun and the rain and the cold. We have to get structure. We have to have homes. All right, we need people who are skilled in building homes well and maintaining them, right? What's the other? We need to educate we need to impart knowledge. We could leave it to the elders, but some elders are busy doing this. So we need people who are skilled in imparting knowledge and nurturing our kids intellectually. So that's how we should think of education. What is the need in community and how can that need be fulfilled? Not what is Germany doing? What is a BMW going to do for an African today? An African who has no house, an African who has GMO food that's killing them, an African who has a president that is selling land. What is a BMW going to do for the collective of Africans if we decide we're going to have a BMW manufacturing plant in Kenya? Why not have a fabric manufacturing or processing plant in Kenya so that everyone is clothed? Why not build schools in Kenya and build tools that are going to be used in those schools to educate, right? You need rulers, you need the different tools. We need to manufacture that at home, the books that we're using. So for me, that's how I'm looking at education now. What is the need in community? No, what is the West doing? No. And in fact, I am against what is the West doing, because evidence has shown that what is the West doing is destroying nature, is destroying the world. So I'm actually moving away from that. So I agree with you, Khanyi. Bringing your internal expression outwardly and let it help others. If you're growing up as a young child and you're singing, that's your internal expression. Go sing for others so that you can bring joy to them. If you're growing up as a child, we had this. Growing up, we would make balls out of plastic bags. I don't know if you did that, and wrap them with strings. And we'd make small cooking stoves that we can put charcoal in and cook. Like seriously, we would take the big can of oil that you buy for cooking. Once it's finished, you cut a hole, you open a door, you bring in, you make a place where the charcoal will be held. And then the top part, the top can, you make holes. That's where the charcoal will sit. And so it's aerated. We made that ourselves. I made that. We made cooking sticks. We made stools, the three-legged stools. We did all that. So if you're a child who's interested in that, clearly you can build, right? You're an engineer. And so that is your calling. And it's so now you go get the skills to make you become a better engineer. We're overthinking this stuff. This white man has made us overthink everything, and we need to stop overthinking it. It's simple. Khanyi.
I love what you've said, and I think it's so true. We are overthinking it, and the point of departure should be, what does the community need? Doing that, implementing that, and then moving to formalize that within academia. The problem is that now the system has inverted itself, and academia is a highly profitable business. For me, I don't even understand how we haven't really called out how profitable education is. I think people even forget that we pay for school. And then, because when we come out with an expectation, I mean, in the UK, the students have taken it as far as suing some of these universities because they're creating an expectation that you've commodified education. I've come there, I've paid, it's a service. I need to get something out of it. But these universities have been they've been very clever in the way that they're maneuvering the argument to say that your degree it qualifies you, but at the end of the day, it's what you do with it. So they're kind of navigating, they're kind of navigating in a very clever way that I found that interesting, because I was like, wow, what would you say if somebody said I came here and this had no value? And then when I saw the counter arguments, I was like, well, I mean, I do expect that, because I mean, the West, I think, is very good at the counter argument. They're always well prepared for when you challenge that. No, I don't think this. They're like, no, we've thought about this, and this is all the value that you get. And if you can't do anything with this education, it's your fault, because with capitalism, it's always your fault. It's never the structural and systemic. If you can't get ahead, it's you. And I think we have to move away from that. I say that in a joking manner, but it's true, because I think with the mindset that it puts us in, many people who aren't able to navigate the system, and the system is unfair. I mean, by no means do I ever look at capitalism or even how far I've gotten myself and think, oh, just everyone is behind me because they're just so bad and they don't work hard enough. No, I know, I can see the system, right? I see that we're not all developing at the same rate. We can't be. We don't all have access to the same materials, knowledge, networks. I just don't think we're prepared to live this way. And I just wanted to make a point that a lot of Africans wait for resources to do things. And it's something that bothers me, because I'll always ask the question, how would you exchange value without money in the middle? And that move from that perspective, because if you're constantly waiting for money, you're never going to do what you say you're going to do. And I know this because when I was in my final year of school, this was like not university, high school. I'll say high school because I know in all these different countries we call that final year different things. And I was on a leadership program at an international business school, which is in South Africa. And in that program, they were training us to be Pan-African leaders, taking from global influence, but then localizing what we're learning to help solving Africa's problems and South Africa's problems. So what we did at our small age, I mean, I was only 18 at the time, but as 18-year-olds, we were able to identify a need in our community, which we felt for youths that were more underprivileged than ourselves. It was access to employment opportunities, but more so career guidance, because we felt that people with underprivileged backgrounds, they didn't even know what options that they had. And we wanted to provide a platform where we could bring people from various industries to speak to them and provide them with pathways that they could potentially explore. So I look back and I think at 18, if we could put that together, very under-resourced. I mean, I think we had sandwiches for people. It was so scrappy. But at the end of the day, the people that needed that knowledge got that knowledge, because they wouldn't ordinarily have had access to the people that we managed to connect them with. So I think that is the point. We need to start focusing on the value of what we're doing versus how do I benefit from this financially? I think for me, the problem is this brainwashing when it comes to financial extraction or financial gain. That is the biggest impediment on the continent. Let's exchange value without finance and see how far we get. For example, we're talking now about re-educating the youth when it comes to indigenous knowledge, let's say around value. These are teachings that I thought everybody got at home. Unfortunately for me, my grandmother, she's too elderly to actually do this. And I wish she was younger, maybe 10 years. She would have been the perfect person to be on these platforms and educate people about how should you see value. So these are things that we can really impart at community level, because people, again, we're overcomplicating it. We look at the West. I was in another platform where people were talking about AI in Africa. And it took me so long to recover from that. I think Oladela had sent him a voice note afterwards, and I was like, you know what? I think that we are having a very different conversation to what's going on in the diaspora, because the diaspora seem to believe Africa needs AI tomorrow. And in my mind, I was the only sobering voice, because I was like, how does AI help the average Kenyan single mother struggling to make ends meet? You want to build data centers in Africa. Data centers require fresh water. And once I heard that, I was like, why? How does this even make sense? We're struggling to have clean water right now, a basic essential need for people. Yet you think the viable option is data centers. And my favorite one was that like AI will solve poverty. I was just like, how? Like, because if it could, it would. It's the same thing of like people saying AI is going to create jobs. Which ones? Because if it could, it would. So we also have to stop falling for this is like what the West does well. They sell you potential, but never delivery, and we keep falling for it. Why don't we say, let AI do what it needs to do in the West? Let us see it take away everybody's jobs and create these jobs before we copy paste it in Africa. Why are we just so quick to say we're going to get left behind? Let's replicate it. No, allow the plane to be built and tested. Because this is what I also don't understand. When it comes to other things, we want these things to be tested and vetted and gone through that and peer reviewed and all of these things. But when it comes to other things, you guys are happy to try them without even knowing where it leads to. You go. I think that we also need to be to trade a little bit more carefully and evaluate where does this lead.
I'm so glad, Khanyi, you're speaking about the AI conversation, because I'm currently reading artificial unintelligence, and I've been saying this whole time on Kumbukeni, and I love it when I'm vindicated by an expert. She's an expert. She's an AI developer. She's someone who knows what she's talking about. And she says, I'm going to quote, technology is not new. The tech revolution has already happened. Tech is now mundane. Techno-libertarian political values celebrating free speech to the extent of denying that online harassment is a problem. There never has been, nor will there ever be, a technological innovation that moves us away from the essential problems of human nature. Never, ever, ever. It doesn't matter whether it's Bill Gates, Bill Schmo, Bill Duke, whatever. AI is not intelligent. AI is a tool that a human being who's intelligent has deposited data into, and that has structured, has built it to move a certain way. And unless that human being says go left, AI will not go left. It has to be built to go left. So please, people, just wake the fuck up. Excuse me. Like, wake up. Why are we so stupid? Like, really, why are we so stupid? Why have we become so stupid? That the white man says jump, we jump. The white man says, oh, the sun is yellow. Oh, no, wait, the sun is blue today. And we're looking at it, it's yellow right there, and we're calling it blue because the white man said. We don't even realize that in what we are doing, we are embracing white supremacy. The false notion of white supremacy. We don't even realize that. We don't even realize that. In saying Kenya must have AI, we don't even realize that is white supremacy that we are embracing. What do I mean by that? We are saying, oh, this technology that the white man built must be good. We don't even question it. So I'm telling you, and I'm gonna, once I finish this book, I'm gonna reach out to the author and I'll tell her that I'm gonna do a review and I'll ask for permission to read, because we're gonna break this down. It's about time I let you all know that what I have been saying through an expert's eye is true. AI ain't intelligent.
Yeah. You know what? And both of you basically summed up what I'm gonna come in next. And I've often said, we Africans, we said we're intelligent people. We are the origin of civilization. We survived, we innovated before the Muzungu was even existed. So why are we looking to what is right all the time? Why can we not innovate and develop systems that work for Africa? Why do we have to go to the people? And just listen carefully. These people have come into our continent. We lived peacefully. Obviously, we had our own wars, but we lived. We were not as brutal as they were. And we had everything. There was no scarcity in Africa. And we had everything we needed. And we developed. And if they did interrupt our history, we would develop in our own way to fit our paradigm without them poking the filthy noses in. We will develop. So in 2026, we've got to the stage where, and this speaks to our education again, that we have been miseducated. So when are we gonna sit down, as all of you lot here, and I'm sure there's some professors and doctors here, When are we going to sit down and develop a curriculum, that's going to guide us to empower ourselves? Because this is, we're talking about solutions. This is solutions we need. We cannot keep using systems that are not working for us to work for. It's not going to work. Because of this system, that's why Africa is in the poverty it is today, because of the Muzungu systems. That's what's created poverty in Africa. People don't get it. They think, oh yeah, if you do this well and do that well, it's going to be okay. Guys, let's face facts. The moment they came into our continent is when scarcity started, lack started. Just go back and think about it. If you're not thinking about it, think about it. What we've embraced is basically making us poorer because it creates scarcity. It basically develops all these systems that they've created, things that we didn't need. They tell us we now need it. So all of you lot are aspiring to have all these things. I call them mirrors and mirrors and whatever, thinking, oh yeah, if we don't have this, I haven't arrived. So your fulfillment as a person is now into the materialistic things that they bring into your content to tell you that you need. These things you not need. What you need is a community. You need to empower. You need things that are going to elevate and empower everybody, not just you. So I love that. Somebody put the organize, innovate, liberate. I love that. So when we're talking about solutions, this is basically the way forward for Africa. Let's build systems. Let's build structures. Let's build anything that's going to work for us. Let's stop behaving like what is right all the time. That mindset needs to change. Muzungus have always done everything to keep us down. We cannot keep looking to these same people to be the solutions for us. It's never worked. Stop thinking white is right. I'll say again, white is never right. White is basically evil. You black people, you Africans need to start developing systems that's going to work for you. Don't even look to them for nothing. Build your own. Look at what China's doing. Look at what Iran's been able to achieve. If Iran didn't develop the things they needed, they would have been so plummeted, even though America hit them, Israel hit them, but they're holding their own because they had to look inwards. They had to use their adversity to build solutions for themselves. Why are we Africans not doing this? And we say this, me and Nduku say it all the time, we Africans are at war. But all of you lot think we're saying it for the sake of saying it. We're at war. And the only way to get out of this war is for Africa to renovate, to build systems that's going to work for us, away from their gaze. We don't need what they have because, guys, don't forget, our continent is so rich that we have everything we need. So why are we looking outwards when we should be looking inwards within ourselves and building on the unique, authentic potential that the Creator has given us? Khanyi, if you want to carry on.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with both of your points. And I think for me as well to add, when it comes to the AI conversation, I just think that what's being missed is that this is another wealth transfer. If you look at who's building AI and who's buying AI, it's a group of people that seem to look the same.
Yeah.
Right. So that's why for me, I think I'm of the view that's sufficient for the continent or the continent's problems.
Yes.
I don't think now because we're getting dragged into this conversation now around governance and data centers and data sovereignty. And in my mind, I'm just like, wow, we are talking about data sovereignty where we should be talking about governmental sovereignty, financial sovereignty. And again, I think that
is data sovereignty.
Data.
This. What did the white man cook up now in the white world? Go ahead.
And look, remember we had that conversation where I was telling you about having to learn all of this new language because everything needs to be qualified. So this new term I came across in the AI space is data sovereignty. Because when your own country doesn't hold its data in country, that data is then held in another country, meaning that they have access to all your records. So currently, with how AI is set up, our data is held in the US. And this is for people that maybe don't know. I mean, I'm sure now everybody knows it's out the bag. I'm a little bit of a nerd, so I read a lot about a lot of things. But the TikTok China US war, this is what it was about. It was all a data war. This is why the US and they wanted to have their own data center for TikTok, and not that the data center be based in China, because then they get access to their data and then they don't have oversight. And again, when it comes to data breaches and things, people don't even understand how porous data breaches are. They're happening all the time. Our data is being sold and misused, and people are extracting more data from us than they need to. So the whole
Yep.
concept around data sovereignty is that each government should have sovereignty over its people's data. But I mean, for me, there are no safeguards, even if our governments promised us that they will hold and protect our data.
No, they can't
Just
protect that.
like history shown that they don't protect
No,
us.
they
So for
can't
me, I'm
protect
just
it.
like, even if they have these data agreements, I'm pretty sure our data is going to get sold anyway. And that also leads to the health agreements that were entered into most recently for data. And that's why people were quite upset, because now the US will now have access to people's data, how they're doing health-wise, whereas ordinarily they wouldn't have access to that. So everybody needs to, now because we're in digital real estate world, and it's unfortunate because now we need to start thinking like that. And Doku, this is how I even know terms like data sovereignty, because now we're going into this new data real estate world. Now you need to know about all of these things. You need to be a bit more protective over who we share our data with, what kind of data that we're sharing, because there's no protection. Even if they say there is, there really isn't.
I was about to say, let me just expose this foolishness for what it is. So let's play this out, right? No single African country, none, not even outside of the continent, because I do believe Haiti is an African country, Brazil is an African country. So none, not even one, owns a database or has ownership of a database.
I think Burkina Faso bucked that trend. Burkina Faso,
No,
they're building.
no, they don't own one. No, no,
Okay.
no, no. There's none. There's none. It's a complicated conversation. I don't have the tech
Okay.
minds to explain it. We need to bring someone to explain what the internet is and how it
Okay.
works.
We will.
It's laughable for any African country to sign a document that says they have data sovereignty and think that it's true. It's actually very laughable. It truly is very laughable. Because the owners of the data collection tools
Yeah.
are Urugu, and we actually think that they're going to give us sovereignty.
No,
So let's give an example, because Elon Musk owns, right, data collection centers. He even owns satellites. So let's give him as an example. So me, I am Ruto. For this uncomfortable exercise, I'm going to be Ruto. And so I sit with Elon Musk and my government all in their black suits, looking all penguin-like, because the white man said this is how we dress. And Elon Musk and his people tell us, okay, we're going to bring Starlink to Kenya and you're going to have sovereignty. And we sign, yes, sir. Thank you. We have sovereignty and we expect these freedoms with Elon Musk. Like, do we all see like the ridiculousness that we are believing to walk in? And this is what we are calling progress. So we bring AI into Africa, but we don't have sovereignty in controlling the AI. How do we think that's going to help us? We're just bringing colonialism into Africa, virtual colonialism. So now they have access to our bank information. They have access to our health information. They have access to our miseducation information so that they can see where, that one has opened an African school. We must co-opt. Let's send some undercut, because this is what happened to the school in Kenya. Some good-looking white people were sent there and they didn't even realize that they were being taken over and stopped from moving in an African way. So it's so hard. I need to speak to these elders who've been doing this work for long because I need therapy. It's hard knowing and then dealing with stupid people. I'm sorry. Let me mute.
Undergo, I feel you, man, because we're in the same boat. But we are here for a reason, and we have no choice but to continue doing what we're doing. So, Khanyi, let's round this conversation up, and obviously there's some questions. So going forward, as a youth, how do we build? How do we build? How do we create the? I know you touched it, but let's just summarize it. How do we create the solutions from a youth perspective? What kind of work that we need to do? Yeah.
Okay,
Actually, Oladele and my sister, if you allow me, can I do the exercise? Wait, says, oops, something went wrong. Try reloading this page. No, be quiet, AI. You're not intelligent. I just told you. Nothing went wrong. We're still here. So can I do my exercise where it's gonna add to that question, where I read the prompt, like the thing that I put in Chat GPT, and then it inspires our sister to give the answer. Can I do that?
Sure.
All right.
Yeah, go on.
All right. So I said, generate an answer. Oh, I said I was not going to give prompts anymore so that I don't give away that knowledge, right? So I questioned it in an African-centered way. And it came back and said, if we're serious about reclaiming our economic future. No, hold on. I went down. All right, yeah. I gave it the topic, the future of work is African, a youth perspective on reclaiming tomorrow. For the two of you, I'll send you the prompt again, right? Because now we're in a space that has Yurugu and all kinds of enemies. But for the two of you, I'll send you the prompt. For those in community organizing, you will have access to the prompts. And it comes back. You've already got strong raw material from her. You, my guest. Those points are really about expression, miseducation, and misalignment between learning and livelihood. The goal now is to turn that into questions that push her from observation, African-centered vision, to real pathways. Here are African-grounded questions you can use to shape a powerful conversation. Identity equals work. You spoke about bringing your internal expression outward to serve others from an African-centered perspective. What is the relationship between who we are and the work we are meant to do? Why does this matter? African traditions don't separate identity from labor. This opens the door to purpose-driven work instead of survival-driven work. This is AI. You see what I'm saying? It's not intelligent. It's because some African put this. It's because I have conditioned my AI to know how I think, and it's moving this way because I'm conditioning it to think from an African perspective. Challenging the school to job pipeline, because I have done research on this. That's why they're coming back with this. You pointed out that we are trained to compete for one job. How do we break out of that mindset and return to an African model of creating value rather than waiting to be selected? Why this matters. It shifts from dependency to agency. Redefining education, and I'll stop here. Actually, I'll do the next one and then you can answer because it's related to the question Oladele asked. If the current education system is commodified and not guaranteeing livelihoods, what would an African-centered model of education look like? One that actually prepares us to sustain ourselves and our communities. Why this matters? It moves from critique to reconstruction. So I took one of those, right? And I said to it that I want an answer to it instead of waiting for you to answer it. And that's when it came back and said, if we're serious about reclaiming our economic future, then the first thing to be clear about is this. We're not just trying to get better positions inside a broken system. We're trying to build life-giving systems of our own. That changes what skills even means. From an African-grounded perspective, the core skills are not just technical, they are cultural, spiritual, communal, and economic at the same time. Here's how that looks like. Self-knowledge and cultural grounding, knowing who you are. Before any external skill, there must be internal clarity. African youth must develop their ability to understand their history, lineage, and cultural values, define purpose beyond job titles, see themselves as contributors to a people, not just individuals chasing survival. Why does this matter? If you don't know who you are, your skills will always be used to build someone else's vision. Number 2, value creation, not job seeking. We've been trained to ask, who will hire me? We must shift to, what problem can I solve for my people? This includes identifying community needs, turning ideas into goods and services, thinking like builders, not applicants. Why does this matter? Economic power comes from creating value, not waiting to be chosen. Cooperative economics, working collectively. Traditional African societies thrived on shared labor and shared reward. Youth need skills in building and managing cooperatives, pooling resources and circulating money within the community, trust building and collective decision making. Why does this matter? Individual success without collective structure keeps us fragile. And it does. We'll talk about that. Take notes. Collective economics creates stability and scale. Number 4, practical production skills, making, growing, building. We must reconnect to production, not just consumption. This includes agriculture and food systems, trade skills, construction, fabrication, design, digital production, media, platforms, technology. We must be the creators, not the users of it, the creators of it. Why it matters. Any people that cannot produce what they need will always depend on others to survive. Any people that cannot produce what they need will always depend on others to survive. Financial literacy with a liberation lens, not just budgeting, but understanding, investment in community-based enterprises, how money flows and how we direct it. If we don't control capital, we don't control outcomes. Communication and storytelling. I have 3 more to go quickly. Communication and storytelling. We must be able to tell our own stories, teach, inspire, and organize our people, shape narratives around African identity and possibility. Why does this matter? Control of narrative is control of reality. If we don't define ourselves, others will and profit from it. We're literally living this. Number 7, discipline and long-term thinking. Reclaiming an economic future is not a quick win. It's generational work. Youth must build consistency, patience, the ability to delay gratification for collective gain.
Yeah, brilliant.
Why it matters. We are not just building for today, we're building for those not yet born. Spiritual alignment and ethical responsibility. And you heard from our guest last week on Kombokeni that without African spirituality, you might as well just stop building anything else because that's your grounding. No, seriously. Work is not just economic, it is moral and spiritual. This means aligning work with principles that sustain life, rejecting systems that exploit people or the land, understanding that success without integrity is distraction. Why does this matter? A system that generates wealth but destroys people is not progress. It's collapse in slow motion. So bringing it all together, it says, an African grounded answer ultimately sounds like this. The core skills we need are the ability to know ourselves, work together, create value for our communities, and build systems rooted in life, not exploitation. Because reclaiming our economic future is not about fitting into the world as it is, it's about restoring balance and building the world as it should be. Go ahead, my sister and my brother.
I love everything that you shared, and I think that that's relevant in all contexts, to be honest, Nduku. And I was going to say that I think we're at quite a critical juncture globally, and there is this big reset. So I think there's a real opportunity that we all have to recalibrate, redefine, and reorient ourselves. And I think for anyone listening, maybe who might not be African, this conversation is still helpful because the globalized Western capitalist system that we are all under is not helpful for anybody. And that's why I led with, until Africa is liberated, the rest of the world will still be under the shackles of capitalism. There's a phrase that in the AU and UNDP that they use. They say the Africa that we want is the Africa that the world needs. And I love that because I think it's so true. There's so much knowledge, indigenous knowledge in Africa as to how we can constitute society. Democracy, as we know it today, governance has been hijacked by corporations for corporations to benefit corporations. We need to take back our society and go back to a democracy that was by the people, for the people, to benefit the people. And we don't need to be innovative and think big. We start small within our communities. So I love what's been shared today about solving your immediate needs. And then we can share that knowledge among each other that what is working here can work here. And then we can use these tools like technology and the internet, to expand and scale those ideas, which is something that we've never had the ability to do. So we can use some of these Western tools to our advantage, because from a scaling perspective, this is how we scale progress quickly. And this is how we're going to iterate and find out what's working and what's not working a lot quicker. But I also don't want people to put themselves under pressure. Not everybody's like Ibrahim Traore, who's going to take over the whole country and lead everybody. Not everyone is bold, and that's fine. But as I usually say all the time, self-leadership, everything begins with you. And you've mentioned that in your prompts, and that's why I enjoyed them quite a lot. Until people understand who they are. Because I speak to these people, Alodela was mentioning, that have all of these letters behind their names. They have PhD'd, but when it comes to knowing who they are, they don't know. So we cannot always occupy ourselves with this pseudo knowledge. We need to get to know ourselves. And even in the context of Africa, we need to understand in Africa pre-colonial, understanding a South Africa pre-apartheid. These things are important because your identity is beyond a laborer, is beyond somebody who's always serving or being extracted from. And until Africans can understand this, we're not going to move the needle. And I still say the liberation of the rest of the world is dependent on the liberation of Africa. And I will just close with the Italian, I think she's a prime minister. She says, God, please save Africa from Europe. And there's a reason she says that, because even the West realizes it doesn't benefit them. The more they continue to extract and plunder Africa, the more Africans keep migrating to where there's resources. So this is not helpful for anybody. So when we talk about recalibrating and reconfiguring the world of work and how we see value, these concepts are beneficial from everybody, because I haven't spoken about the white on white violence of capitalism. It is a violent system. It doesn't care what you look like. It doesn't care where you come from. And once everybody understands that, collectively we will all begin to move very differently and treat each other with humanity, because that is what is missing from the conversation. Ubuntu, I am because you are, but I need to recognize my humanity first, which capitalism doesn't allow. And then I can recognize your humanity.
Whoa, thank you very much, man. I love that. I love that. Yeah. My thoughts. Africans, like Kanye said, like Ondoku said, we are our own solutions. We need to look inwards. The ability, the capabilities, the uniqueness, you name it, we have everything we need. And like Unduku said in our prompts, the self-identity is missing. That's basically one thing that the miseducation has done to us. But let's look at ourselves, man. When we're talking about the creation, humanity, it's us, the Africans. We are the civilization. When we're talking about nurture, woman, it's us. Nature, it's us. And like Kanye said, Africa, the world needs Africa more than Africa needs the world. You can see everything they're doing. You can see all the scrambling they're doing. They're doing everything to come, because they haven't got nothing in the West. And to sustain their capitalist consumerism exploitative habits, they need us. But we Africans, what we need to do is basically start, like what Nuku said, I'll say it again, identify yourself as who you are. Build your strong identity. Our history is not being taught. This is basically why we're looking to develop a curriculum that's basically going to put African history out there for people who don't know, because I find that people in Africans are so ignorant of their history. And this is one of the biggest problems facing Africans in Africa, that they always look to the Muzungu as the go-to standard that they need to get to, which is basically a distorted history. So the more of our history they know, and they know how we got to where we are before our history got to, the better for us. So education, we go back to education, is the key. Self-identity is the key. Knowing who we are is the key. Looking at everything around us and building what we have to sustain ourselves. Africa does not need anything from the West. We can actually build systems and solutions that are not extractive, that will build community. We have the land. Those Muzungus that have the land, this is what our governments need to start doing. We need to get our land back. You see the race for land on the continent. They're buying. There's a reason why they're buying. But you can see your Muzungu, your complicit governments are selling. And this goes also to us as people holding our leaders accountable and responsible for what they're doing. I hate politics, but I have to be interested in politics, because if I don't pay attention to politics, what is mine is being sold off. So I need to know about what's going on. And that's basically where our responsibility comes in. We cannot leave all these things to these people, because don't forget, all our African leaders, as you see them, I think 51 of them are gatekeepers and mission managers for the West. 51 of them are. So the moment that brings anything, they just sign off on it. The 3, and I posted a video over the week. If you go onto a link to YouTube, I posted a video about Ibrahim Traore. This guy was being interviewed. And if you listen to how this young man was articulating and telling people what he's done and how he's empowering the youth, he's saying that the road contracts is internal. They bought the tractors. It's putting youth to work by getting them to build the roads, subsidizing the farms, buying tractors, so they can actually give the youth the tools to grow their own food. It's talking about the universities. He said what they had before was basically not fit for us slaves to sleep in. It's building dignity by constructing universities, cafeteria, basic things they need. These are solutions. This is one leader doing this. Can you imagine if we had more, and I'll say Pan-African leaders, because we need Pan-African leaders. People understand the challenges and need to go against the status quo to build for Africa. So if you haven't got a Pan-African leader, as a Nigerian, I've got my Nigerian, as a Nigerian, a leader is basically, I don't know what to call it. It's a waste of space. So we need Pan-African leaders. Mali is going through some issues at the moment because there's basically an infiltration onto the system, because they're doing everything to basically, mess up that country, because they basically want to tell us that, oh yeah, we're not holding forth, we're not doing the right thing. So there was an attack in Bamako a couple of days ago, probably last night. But this is the hidden hands are going to try to cause chaos. They don't want us to see us unite. What am I saying, guys? Africans, build yourselves up. Let's look within. Let's stop fighting each other. We have our diasporan brothers across the pond. We have ourselves. Within us, we have solutions. They have the skill set. We're back home. We have the land. Let's come together. Our unity is what's giving them a headache. This is basically why they are working so hard to make sure we stay divided. And they are working tirelessly to stay as well. And they succeeded, because unfortunately they educated us. Because half of us are thinking like coconuts at the moment. So white is always right, with the, like Khanyi said, those with the DDDs and letters behind the name. That's basically that's you. But you are more than that. So guys, it's about time we build. The youth are the tomorrow. There's a question here actually. Somebody was asking about the youth. But let's answer this question actually. Let's put this question here. This question here.
There's actually 2 statements that need to be addressed, I think.
Okay, this is the first one here. Said, we'd love to hear your thoughts about how our culture also infantilizes the youth and so struggles to let go of power for them to take the reins, constantly postponing under the guys. Yeah, that one there is a good one. Who wants to start with that one? I love that. Because yeah, in Nigeria, they said the youth are the leaders tomorrow, but the youth never get there.
Just a clarification, that's not our culture. It's the virus infection. Let's just start with that. It's not our culture to infantilize anyone. Our culture had rites of passage, and everyone was prepared for the stage they were moving into. So this is not our culture. That's the problem. This is not our culture. Our culture knew what age you were in and what you were capable of, and then prepared you to move into the next age group. So let's just start by saying that's not our culture. I'm handing it over to the two of you.
Yeah, Khanyi, what do you say to that?
Yeah, I think Nduku's right. And as someone who came to the West later on in life, I experienced ageism here. And I still do. And I don't understand it because I don't see myself in the same lens. So a lot of those authority figures want respect by virtue of age. But whereas in African culture, respect is reciprocal. So I think that that comment about infantilization, it's definitely a West. I can attest from lived experience, it is a Western construct. I didn't feel like that in an African setting. But it's also important that the youth have to also see themselves beyond their capabilities, because what I find is that a lot of people don't believe that they're capable of doing the things that they can do because they're not qualified. Because, of course, we've got the education barrier. So people believe I can't implement this solution because I need said qualification. So again, we need to remove that thinking. You don't need to be qualified to become an executor. You just execute because you can. And that's your divine authority. You came on this earth with that authority to execute. So you must do so, qualified or not.
Okay, thanks for that. Any more questions there? There's a statement here. We do want to round up with this one. I said, let's focus on practical solutions. I think we talked about solutions. Africa has been in a cycle of talking about our power for more than 300 years. So talk about solutions. We've talked about solutions. And the solutions is basically, like Khanyi said, it's basically for us to start building for ourselves. Let's Ubuntu our solutions. Let's prioritize what works for us. Using the capitalist system to build ourselves is never going to work for us, because all it does is create a gap. And this is basically where envy and jealousy and hatred comes in, because there's haves and have-nots. This is basically what the Western system has actually created. So for us Africans to start keep fitting into that, we're not going to empower ourselves. We're just going to create that division. And that's, like I said earlier, and then we have the one-eyed king in the midst of the blind. And we don't want that. We need basically loads and loads of kings and not the one-eyed one. So that way we can elevate, we can grow. We have enough capital and resources to actually build ourselves up. And that's the only way. And this is basically what we need to start looking to do within ourselves. It starts with us with us individually and then collectively. Nduku.
I do agree that we need to move to I guess this person is saying what?
Yeah, instead of education, what if we start calling it nurturing intellectually?
Our power for more than 3, it's now okay. Anyway, so I said earlier on, I said African culture is secular. So nothing stands up above anything. Talking is not less important than action. Action is not more important than talking.
Yeah,
they're both essential to get results. So not just in how we move, everything in African culture is secular. Everything is needed. The talking is just as important as the action. The point is not to do too much talking and forget the action, or too much action and forget the talking. That's when there's no balance. But talking, informing is just as important as the action, especially in an age where we are so misinformed. So this business of let's stop talking about it, it's one thing to say, okay, let's stop focusing too much on the talking, let's also balance it with action. But let's stop talking about it. No, I'm African. We don't stop. We add, we build, and someone I have my partner always says to me, like, when you're talking, build on what is being said, build on what is saying, build. So let's think that way. When we do things, let's build on what we already have. Yes, we're talking, so let's add action to talking. Let's build on the talking. Let's not get rid of the talking, because the talking is working. It's doing
needed.
certain things.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's my response.
Yeah, and it's needed. And that's why we've got this platform, because a lot of people need to hear this. What we're saying, because a lot of us, like I said, a lot of us have been so miseducated that this kind of conversations we don't have. Because you're so into your bubble, in your workplace, in your culture. A lot of people are with Muzungu all week, wherever you are, that you don't get these conversations at all. So you need to hear something different, something that's gonna basically provoke your thoughts, which is what we do. So yeah, we need to keep talking, and also like we need to back it up with action. And guys, I gotta say, because I saw some comments in there, less prayer, more action, because you're praying and going to the church and mosque has not helped nobody, guys. So let's throw that in the garbage bin. So if you're a Christian or Muslim, I'm nothing against you, but I think that's part of our problem, guys. Let's focus on solutions, and prayer is not needed. Prayer is basically, I call it action in motion. That's for me, that's prayer. You're actually doing something, and basically the elements align with what you're doing. And that for me, that's praying. Anyway, girls, any other thoughts?
Khanyi didn't give her thoughts on that, but also our sister did the last minute submission of something in the comments. But can you respond to that one before, and then we'll address
which one is that?
Said. You'll see. To the brother Khanyi, who's saying we've talked too much for 300
years.
I
think the conversation has been compromised. It's giving infiltrated.
Okay, let's take this one here, Judy. Please elaborate on the benefits of learning indigenous languages. Is there a huge communication barrier between Africa and diaspora? Who wants to go on that?
She's saying there is, and
yeah,
we've attempted this, right? And we're going to continue attempting despite the challenges. I have been teaching Ubuntu, but number one, I'm busy. Like, this is unfortunately what this system does to us. It keeps us busy trying to survive that we cannot serve, right? Yeah. So because I need to work and make an income, because now I'm doing school so that I can make an income, because this is what the system is doing for us. Because while you're sitting and being a revolutionary and trying to go back to living on the land, your kids are like, Mom, I need to pay $1,000 for the scholarship I got for college. It's needed by May 1st, you know? Okay, I have to go back to work. If I go back to work and I'm doing my master's, I cannot teach Swahili. So the one student actually that I was working with, I had to say to him, okay, stop paying. We'll just meet when we can and I'll help you. So part of this, and I've said this before, is if the community, let's say 1,000 people, no, for Nduko to be able to pay for a house, for Nduko to be able to get food, for Nduko to be able to continue doing kumbukeni, let's say $4,000 a month. 4,000 Africans globally decide to send me $1. I'm just showing how cooperative work. And this is for me to serve the community so that I can do kumbukeni, so that I can continue the studies, so that you know what I'm saying? Like, so that I can teach Ubuntu. If 4,000 Africans decide today, we're going to send $1 to Nduko, $1, that has been resolved. There's a teacher who's committed and dedicated to show up and teach Kiswahili. And this is simply what it is. We must be willing, again, I am because we are, to sacrifice so that others can feed us. We must be willing to feed so that we can be fed. So until we get to that mindset where, okay, how are we going to contribute towards this individual serving community in this exploitative system? Because we are still in this exploitative system. We are going to feed them, a bunch of us, right? Brother Kenyatta was here last week. He's running a youth program. He's been running it for 25 years, I think he said, or something, 26 years. Struggling, supporting it mostly with their own pockets. And they've been making it work. They have had graduations and graduations of young men who've gone through rites of passage. And now they're trying to build a bigger space so that they can expand and now have a young girls' rites of passage program. And the thing that's holding them back is money.
Funds.
Money. But as he said, and as we were saying yesterday with Dr. Kalfani, if 1 million of us give $1, that's $1 million for that. And that project is like that. It's done. So we have to get in that mindset. My sister, remind me my sister's name. I'm so focused on what I'm doing. Judy. My sister, Judy. I would love to be able to teach Ubuntu 24/7 or more hours than I'm doing right now. I would love that. But we're limited by the system. And I look forward to returning. And there are people who are teaching. And this is why I don't compete or don't go to that person because I'm still teaching you. though I had an issue with someone who we had agreed on something, but they're teachers. Go learn from them. My thing is Kiubuntu, Kiswahili is a language that combines many Bantu languages. I promise you, when you learn Kiubuntu, or when you learn, oh God, I want to say the Kemetic language. I don't want to call it hieroglyph because it's not. Metaneta. When you learn Metaneta, you'll see those two languages I encourage you to learn, actually. Now I'm going to be specific. I encourage you right now, if you're an African who wants to return to the African tongue, to either learn Kiubuntu, which is Kiswahili, or Metaneta. Those two are very related, and it's in the grounding of the Bantu languages. You will see once you learn both of them. And those of you who've learned can comment later on this broadcast how you have seen similarities in them. Those two languages will make it easier for you to embrace other languages in the African culture. But then those two languages, one clearly has a civilization that it beholds that we can learn from and bring it into Kiubuntu. But Kiubuntu is the uniting language. So, yes, you're right, Judy. We need to close the barrier, the linguistic barrier between ourselves, not just the diaspora, but also on the continent. There's a linguistic barrier. Yeah. Go on.
And I agree with you, and I feel like we need a unifying language on the continent and globally. And this is part of the barriers that are holding us back from united, because they've drawn a wedge. You know, people embrace French and English, man. And we're speaking French and English. It's not a language. So we need to be intentional in terms of creating solutions that's going to unite our African people all over the continent and globally. And this is basically, we'll say again, this is where our governments are useless. So the work is going to be from grassroots level going up. Because if you're waiting for the governments to do anything for you guys, we've only got one Ibrahim Traore on the continent. And we need more. So we need more. So if listen, we need to kick out all the 51s that we need to kick them all out. So we need Pan-African leaders. So imagine if we had about 10 Traores in our continent today. You know that the West will be quaking in the boots. They'll be scared. But we need them to be scared. They need them to know that we're ready for a revolution. So embracing a Tinubu or Ruto is an embarrassment to our continent, guys. It's an embarrassment. As a Nigerian, I'm embarrassed to have a Tinubu as my head of state, seeing how they move. So we need to keep these old fogies who have no ideas, who are basically dead on arrival, to the curb. Seriously, we need to get rid of them. We need solutions that work, and and it goes back to the youth perspective. Okay, they're fresh in ideas. They see things differently. Ibrahim Traore is 37 years old. So I'm an old fogey. I'm nearly 60. In as much as I'm here, but that's why I've got young people around me most of the time. It basically sharpens my thoughts, and it helps me, because I'm listening to Khanyi talking, I'm listening to Nduku talking. I've got quite some there. I'm basically around young people all the time, and most old people. This is where we lost it. This is where we lost it, because you think you're old, you don't want to listen, or you don't want to hear what the youth is saying, because they're just kids. And this is where we're missing it. So. And I heard Efo saying, I'm with you. Efo, I know you're with me, my brother, man. So we're building a community of like-minded people as well.
No, that's me saying to Efo, I'm with him.
Okay.
Efo said, pray to who? Where's this God in all this chaos?
All right, okay. Yeah, but Efo is also part of the community. And we're building a community of like-minded people anyway. Through what we do, people are linking up, and we're communicating, and we're building. It might not feel like anything now, but we're building a grassroots movement here where people are coming together and doing things. This is basically what we need to do, guys. Let's look within ourselves. Like Unduku said, we're not begging, but if you see that you need to help. It's so simple. If somebody's doing something that you can't do, and you say, oh yeah, these people, just reach out and help them. This is how we build stuff. This capitalist thing that, it's annoying that, because of what we're doing, we're so distracted that we don't even see what we're doing to ourselves. We're losing our community in the process, and most put it in Africa, where we lack so much, and we're still trying to fit into this system that's pushing you away from your community now. Because I go to Nigeria, I see people trying to live like a Western person. You know, they move from the urban center to the city in the concentration camps, where everything is exorbitant, and you can't afford to live there, but you move in there. Guys, we need to think differently. We need to think differently, guys. You know, any final thoughts from you guys before we round this up? Yeah, any thoughts? Are we good?
What does Khanyi think about the linguistic question?
The linguistic question is an interesting one, and I think I look at it differently because I think it also impacts how we learn and the quality of what we're learning. Like a lot of that translation work that we're doing, sometimes it's not that you don't get it, it's just because it's not said to you in your mother tongue that you don't understand it. And I think even for myself, there's just some phrases in Zulu that you cannot translate into English.
Yep.
Even Ubuntu itself, I mean, I stumbled across, a white person on LinkedIn saying that, they embody Ubuntu leadership principles. And whilst I can understand that you can extrapolate the principles of Ubuntu in your leadership, you also have to understand you could never really embody it because you're not into. But this is the problem with the translation, because the direct translation, everyone will think it's for everybody. Whereas I think you also need to have a respect and an appreciation for African culture first before you can extrapolate the principles from the concept. So that's why for me, I mean, I could speak a lot to language because the nuances between English and Zulu and just even African and European.
Yeah, we need to bring you back on that one. Then you've booked yourself another session.
I'm like, I have to come back because the dichotomy, it's quite jarring, and it's something that you can't even wrap your head around. Just how are these two things so different? But it makes sense why we never understand each other. We're doing this constantly.
Yeah, okay, Unduku. So that's up your street, yeah, language. So yeah, we're gonna come back on that one, yeah. Yeah, you good with that?
I said my piece.
All right, guys.
Oh yeah, having another broadcast. Yes.
Okay. We have a broadcast next Sunday. We have a South African again, Dr. Bababuntu. He talks about empowering the men and getting away from patriarchy. We had a conversation. It's powerful, so I would implore everybody to be part of this conversation. Yes, it's going to be a very good one. And
I'm so glad you said that. You know, when you sent, because originally I thought he was Nigerian when you told me about him, and then you sent me the video. I'm like, very Zulu. His tongue is very South African. I was like, what is going on? So, but I was gonna say that after we got off the broadcast, but I said no. Let me say this, because what I'm saying is, when you have that ear, when you speak that language, when you have that mother tongue, you can hear it, you can differentiate, you can recognize. I don't have to be Zulu to recognize Zulu speaker. I don't have to be Yoruba to. So it again, people.
Yeah, you have the air. Yeah. So thanks. Yeah. So join us next Sunday. Please. And also importantly, guys, if you have not subscribed to our channels, please do. Khanyi, what's your channel so that people can subscribe to your channel?
So my channel is on YouTube, Seize the Light Studio. On LinkedIn, I'm Khanyi Tshabalala. There may be many, but my titles are in the description. Hopefully you'll be able to find me. And Instagram, I'm with Khanyi.
Okay, thank you very much. And with myself, Unduku, is the emerging Alkebulan on the screen there, and it's Kumbu Kenny. Please subscribe, and guys, please support our work. If you think our work needs supporting, please feel free to support us, because it takes a lot of time to put these things together, and it's our time. But we're giving it. But if you feel free to support us, we're not going to say no.
Oladele, quickly, for those of you who are in the Northeast area, that means New Jersey, New York. I don't know if you want to make the trip from DC or Maryland, but if you do, on May 14th, we have an event here in New Jersey, in Bloomfield. It's a fundraiser / gathering where we're going to be coming together to support the Africana Institute at Essex County. So this is about preserving spaces that teach our way, essentially. So just wanted to say that. So, and if you're thirsty for a gathering of your people, there is a price. So just reach out to me if you have any questions, if you're interested in attending. If you want a gathering that you have African people, you're dressed in African attire. That is a requirement for the event, by the way. You have to dress in African attire. And you're speaking with your people about these issues. If you're feeling alone, come out and spend the day with us, the evening.
Thank you. And a parting note from me, and this is to Africans, my African brothers and sisters. Why are you still wearing a shirt and tie in Africa? Sorry, we're African. Why do you have a tie, a shirt and tie, and a suit in that climate? When are you going to decolonize your dressing? I had to say this because I've been wanting to say this for a long time. It's about time we, Africanize the way we dress. It's a statement of intent. I see old people wearing shirt and ties and suits in Africa in that weather. Come on.
You sound like the old man you are. We appreciate you, Grandpa.
Oh, thank you very much. All right, guys, we'll see you next week. Have a good evening, guys. Thank you very much, everybody. Bye.